Well, we have another cast over here today. The Shambler is going to be taking on Mystery Meat in this Protoss versus Protoss practice ahead of Ascension 5 playoffs. Which, it's interesting stuff. Obviously, Mystery Meat going to be taking on Darkened Fantasies at some point when they are both available. But until then, we have this match to grace our screens on a non-standard map, or at least a new map, we'll say. It's Mystery Meat's username is Nerf Toss. Well, he's trying to bring that about by playing it, so always appreciated there. On the lower left-hand corner, it is the Sunglow Protoss Mystery Meat. And over here on the lower right-hand corner, we have the Palatinate Blue Protoss, the Shambler. We'll see who shambles and who doesn't. Defensive pylon here for Mystery Meat seems to be a fairly stock opener when you're not 100% sure of the map. Now, don't get it twisted. This map is 2-spawn. I know looking at the layout, you might be compelled to think that it's actually 4-spawn, but that is not the case. As we see this one start things off. Shambler opting for a later pylon. He's going to go ahead and path over into this direction. He's got a busted tile here that needs fixing. I mean, I guess visually is the problem, right? Oh no, maybe that actually is just busted. Okay. Lattice coming in the background. And it's a gateway for Mr. Nerf Toss, Mystery Meat. It's really funny that Mystery Meat decided, like, he seems to prefer playing to Terran in general, right? But he's decided to play Protoss specifically so that he can outright get it nerfed. I just think that's kind of funny. By the way, there's some kind of satanic sigil in the background here. Funnily enough, it almost looks like one of those Olympic ribbons, or I mean, I know maybe it's supposed to actually be the Omega sign or something, but not visually when you look at it, but on the minimap, it looks like a ribbon of peace or something. It's kind of funny, considering it's also supposed to be Satan. Some alchemy happening, perhaps. Still no gas harvested for Shambler. He's going to duke it out with Mystery Meat's Scribe. Normally, Mystery Meat's pretty good at handling stuff like that, so it's a bit surprising to see him lose his first worker. Obviously, he now no longer has the pressure of being able to build wardens or whatever the fuck. Actually, this base has a little bit of turret room up here. And obviously, the warden coming and a redundancy pylon for good measure. He's going to be sending some zealots across the map. There was no vassal, to my knowledge, so it is just Sims, which obviously are not going to be doing too much to the Protoss zealot here. I was thinking that the zealot might need an armor pen removal so that it just has 0 armor pen. There's some minor changes that we can make. Whether or not they're going to be critical nerfs, I'm not 100% sure. Just getting tickled a little bit. This one, thankfully, on hold position, so that one is just going to continue spinning. And we have a Grand Library coming, because, again, Shambler only now started to harvest some Vespene. But when he sees the Zealot, I think he should be a little bit concerned about an attempted bust. At the same time, the threat of vassals is keeping Mystery Meat back. I think, you know, if not for the Grand Library acquisition, there'd be way more units out here for the Shambler. And I think that's probably what Mystery Meat is respecting right now, because he can't scout. I mean, he could just barrel up here and kill the Sims, but... or at least, like, force them to be kited back and then use the Zealot to scout. We did see Nibelheim for a brief period of time using the Zoristaleth for that purpose, of just running past all the static defense, just charging in to see if he can get a scout off. Not threatening at all, but, you know, something that you can do to get some information. Doesn't look like Mystery Meat's on that level with the Zealot just yet. There will be an expansion taken. Shambler is fond of these really enormous town center markers. I think they're a little ugly, but to each their own. I guess they more adequately wrap around the town center. That might be the idea that's happening here. Now, it's been a while since Shambler's been able to scout his opponent, so he is going to go ahead and drop a warden for safety. I do disagree with this, generally speaking, because you have units here that you can use. I mean, especially with this manifold being here. You know, keeping that in the mineral line until you have some kind of guarantee that things are going a certain way, air units are actually coming, etc. Seems to be a better play, because then you still have those 150 minerals to play with, and you can always drop them later on. But be that as it may, it is going to happen. The move out with the Sims, the Manifolds, and the single Atreus. That's going to scare off the Zealot. There are 4 Dracodons here. I think this push could be pretty lethal, especially towards things like Sims, which don't really have the capacity. Ice is now a negative height recipient, so you will get cliff advantage in this position, which is obviously very big. There is a ramp over here that can be used to sidestep that, and it looks like that's exactly what Mystery Meat wants to do. In maps like these, it's always a little bit difficult to imagine. I actually think that this area being such a tight choke is great, as well as there being a spot for cliff advantage over here, because it offers you that option to funnel this in and then build defenses over here or have a front over here. But we'll talk about map design a little bit later, because there's a huge force just walking right on in. Scribes are going to have to be pulled to try to defend the Warden. WTRTF, he doesn't know his own map, boys. Shambler made this map. And this map is now going to unmake him. The Scribes could have been pulled to try to, drill on to the Zealot, stop it from attacking the Warden. Definitely would have helped. But one of the Dracodons is already claimed anyway. This is a pretty big worker loss here for the Shambler. He's already behind 4 workers as of right now, but the shielding is kicking in. I think maybe he'll lose 1 more worker to those Dracodons, and there's a chance for him to, he's going to start getting sniped a few times. The Atreus is dealing with some Zealots that have been haphazardly moved over here. And now the manifolds are tickling over. So, yeah, but still, a deficit pretty stark here. I think that is going to hurt him quite a bit. But his Nexus is on the way. On the flip side, just defenses over here right now. No mining with Mystery Meat's expansion. So there is a chance that this can flip for a little bit. There's 4 Dracodons here. There's going to be some Wardens. I think if Shambler is going to do anything in particular, it would be to stand over here to the right side of the Nexus and harass it. Maybe pick off one of these Wardens. Atreuses do have those projectiles that explode on contact, so you're going to have to be careful about that. But he can at the very least pick off this one Warden in the front. I don't think it's going to get canceled, but maybe no. Yeah, he is... Oh, wow, it doesn't even get popped because of the Dracodons. That's actually pretty bad because it was only on a couple of points of health there, but it still manages to pick off a Manifold. Dracodon slowly increasing the number of simulacra. They can buy some shots, but they're also, those sims are blocking the Atreuses. And the Vassal stayed alive, so they couldn't get the speed increase with the purposes of potentially, charging that ramp. And the Vassal is instead just going to scout. Sees 4 gates, a pretty hard committal. Not great building placement, so Mystery Meat is not going to have like a very expansive area per se. A lot of idle Scribes back at home, but the transfer wasn't really allowed by Mystery Meat to the same degree. So once Shambler realizes this and sends them all mining, which is just about now, I do think that he's actually going to have a bit of an economic advantage. He's caught back up in workers. He can rebuild his Warden. He's established map control. He's put the Fear of Todd back into Mystery Meat a little bit. So it feels like this is going fairly well, but we still don't really have an easy way for additional production to come the way of Mystery Meat, right? He hasn't added any more pylons to increase his build area in his main, so he's not leveraging that just yet. But at the same time, there's only the 1 Grand Library in Lattice, so Shambler's going to have to decide what he wants to do. Looks like he's going to take a 3rd base. This will be spotted here because obviously the ground army is coming in. At least I think it should be spotted. Obviously this should be moved up on. Some static defense being erected over here at the thin ramp. And the pylon will, of course, confirm that the army has moved backwards. So actually, Mr. Meat doesn't know about this yet. So that's actually pretty important. Go ahead and assign camera hockeys. We might be getting into a bit of a longer game here. Just checking in on the worker counts over here. We have about 10 workers at each one of these expansions. And again, the worker counts are fairly even now. The Wardens are finishing. So this is almost perfect timing here. And the Atreuses are even going to do one better. So I think at least 2 Dracodons should go down. It turns out to be a Dracodon and a Zealot. That's not too bad. But now, this is about 30 seconds off from being activated. I think really Shambler is going to need to try to defend this. Some of these will almost certainly are going to get focused down. And yeah, the Zealot's just drawing a lot of the fire. So the first Warden is going to be killed. No cancel. I think the second one is going to be in a similar boat. Although admittedly, the minerals don't matter too much here in this context because of the float. There should be turning, stutter-stepping shots here to try to prevent the flash shielding from kicking in, splash onto those Zealots, and yeah, that Nexus is going to have to be canceled as well. So, fairly obvious play coming out here for Mystery Meat to just pressure both sides. He doesn't seem like he can break this due to the Atreuses. Well, he ends up sniping one of them, and obviously forcing the cancel, which is much more impactful anyway. We still do not have any other production coming out, but there are some Ardent Authorities, including an Acantor, in production. I don't see any embassies for the drops. So they might just end up crawling all their way over here, which takes a lot longer, but isn't actually terrible, considering the position that Mystery Meat is in. He's stopped the economic runaway train. He's technically up workers, but he doesn't know that. So far as he knows, the Shambler should be in a relatively even position. Although maybe he's still thinking that his harassment earlier on in the game should be enough to keep him ahead. It technically seems to have done that, but there was an opportunity for Shambler to keep producing workers this whole time, and he elected not to. Looks like judging by that movement there, we are going to see Mystery Meat take another base. So this will be his opportunity. Judging by his positioning over here, he's not too concerned about a move out from the Shambler. That absolutely could occur, but doesn't seem to be very likely. And the embassy is on the way, ironically enough, for the Shambler. We'll go back here and see. There is one completing now. So it looks like it will be a Cantor drops. The Gateway Army is going to be forced back. Atreus is trying to do their best. But there hasn't been a scout, and until this embassy is complete, I don't know that there will be. It's just hard Atreus production right now here with some idols mixed in. There's a single golem. Forward pylon here. I think this is... I don't know that you're going to do anything with this per se, but it's just mostly there to catch move-outs, I think. Because obviously now we are going to see the drop coming in, right? The embassy is nearly done creating that envoy. This is a bit of a cheeky, move, fallback position here, because he can choose to sort of slam down onto Shambler's forces if he decides to try to posture down in this angle. Instead, Shambler now trying to push a little bit further forward. He has some Atreuses rallying all the way up here. They are not going to be in position to defend against the Acantor drop either down here, where there's a lot of idle workers, or anywhere else. But instead, the Acantors are going to be charging off, firing off shots, revealing themselves for the express purpose of attacking the Atreuses. And though the Zealots will probably fall, the Acantors needed to be focused down here, and it's not even going to be attempted by the Shambler. He's not paying attention to his army right now. Instead, trying to set up a bit of a forward warden, but there's very, very little likelihood of that working out. Yeah, he should be turning and firing onto this envoy, particularly now that it's unloaded. Surely he should be damaging the Acantors, but instead he's just really heavily focused on falling back, which I think cedes too much opportunity here. If Mystery Meat was a little bit more heads up with his Acantor play, he absolutely would be, running roughshod over this army. Does force the stutter step, forces them back. Obviously 80 damage is nothing to scoff at. The Drakidans are not going to have as clean a time over here, but the lack of stutter stepping and movement, and the fact that these defenses went up so late when they definitely could have gone up a lot earlier, that feels like maybe Shambler has to cancel his third base yet again. That is a really awkward spot for him to be in, right? This Nexus is complete, so we are absolutely going to see. We are absolutely going to need... yes, yes. Absolutely slapped. I mean, the Warden can do some damage here, but even it's going to be targeted, so... Mystery Meat is turning the screws. That's getting extended. I do like that. This can be part of the thumbnail, I think. I'm no longer putting my face in the thumbnail because obviously my face is not in the videos, and I didn't want to clickbait you guys, right? Never wanted to do that. But beyond that, it also actually unironically opens up more room for the thumbnail, right? So we might be able to see more interesting thumbnails as a result, despite the fact that they don't have my lovely jolly grin. Again, the lack of sort of like forward movement by the Shambler here with his Atreuses feels like he could have nipped this problem in the bud a lot. There has been conversation about whether or not, he instantly GGs or doesn't GG here as usual, quitting out over here. Hey, interestingly enough, our timer is still, it's sort of out of sync, but not nearly as much as that last game. That's weird. Wonder what's going on there. Traitors, indeed. Well, these Protoss have been traitorous towards each other. There have been conversations about whether or not we are going to be moving away from 2 Acantors and 1 Envoy. Because I think Acantors by themselves are not actually too difficult to deal with. They might be a little bit too durable, which is another open question, right? But I feel like you can dodge them. You can sort of position around them. I think, if you're going up against something like that, Atreuses are always going to struggle because their projectiles do not follow their targets. Whereas that's also true of the idol, right? So like the particular, structures that were being built by Shambler didn't really afford him any anti-air that was going to be like guaranteed. The best he could have hoped for was manifolds, but they have such low range that they would be, and they're so squishy too, that like the Acantors can probably deal with them pretty easily, even though they're fairly nimble and they've got reasonable armor pen. So I feel like they would, with good micro, they'd be able to do something, but the Acantor player is winning based on the action economy there, because the Acantor player doesn't need to micro quite as hard. So it feels anyway like you'd probably end up winning just based on the structures, like the kind of call and response thing there. And I don't like the idea that mirror matchups would have rock, paper, scissors elements to them anyway. So I definitely feel like, at least at this level of skill, you could have responded to it, and Shambler did say so himself. He doesn't feel like Acantors were really the main reason there that he lost, even though they did the most damage. Like, he could have been better at sniping them or responding to them. And obviously, he's playing Protoss. He's trying to help Mystery Meat practice. So, even though they're practicing on a non-standard map or a new map or whatever, that's still true, right? This still gives them some idea of what PvP is going to look like. So we'll have to see when match time shows up and we cast those games between DF and Mystery Meat, which as of right now I do not believe have been played yet. And when I'm looking at it from that angle, it's gonna be interesting, right? It's gonna be neat to see how all of that is going to look like, right? So we'll see. We'll see how that one goes. But yes, I do think that in the future we might see one Acantor per envoy, right? Maybe it has a transport cost of 6 instead of 8, and therefore you can fit a Zealot in there if you want, but not another Acantor. That seems like it would probably be a fine change. But beyond that, I don't know if the Acantor itself needs changes. You can comment below if you think so. And of course, these changes wouldn't take into effect until after the tournament anyway. So we get at least one more tournament with double Acantor drops per envoy being possible, no matter what we decide to do in the future. And you guys can enjoy that when we get back to Ascension 5, which of course requires the playoff games to be played. So at least the first round has to conclude before we can cast that. So stay tuned, and obviously join our Discord server if you want updates on stuff like that, or if you want to participate in these kinds of games, these practice matches, whatever you see. We actually started ranked recently, so you can join our server for more info about that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next cast over when there's maybe a little bit more downtime and I have more time to blab on, or maybe just save that for the podcast this week. Who knows? GG's.